Alex Morales stared at the viewing screen of the U.S. Discovery with wide eyes. The uncharted planet below them seemed ordinary at first glance. Blue oceans, green and brown land masses, swirling white clouds. But the scanner readings were anything but ordinary. "These energy signatures are unlike anything in our database," he said, pushing his glasses up his nose. As the ship's lead xenobiologist, unusual life forms were his specialty, but even he hadn't expected this. Captain Laura Wells frowned at the readings. "Are you sure the equipment isn't malfunctioning? I've run 3 diagnostic checks. These readings are real," Alex replied. "Whatever's down there doesn't match any known species profile." The science officer, Dean Phillips, leaned over Alex's shoulder. "Wait. Run a pattern match against restricted files." Alex's fingers flew across the console. When the results appeared, a hush fell over the bridge. "That can't be right," Alex whispered. The screen displayed a 97% match probability with only one entry: Nyx predators. Every spacefaring race knew of the Nyx. They were the galaxy's apex predators, avoided by all intelligent species. Stories described them as shadow-like creatures with unmatched speed, strength, and hunting abilities. Most considered them more monster than animal. "Set course away from this system," Captain Wells ordered immediately. "Alert Galactic Command of our findings." "Wait," Alex said, standing up. "This is the scientific opportunity of a lifetime. We should send down a probe at least." The captain's expression hardened. "Regulations are clear. No contact with Class 5 dangerous species without military backup. But we know almost nothing about them. All we have are stories and rumors," Alex argued. After much debate, the captain reluctantly authorized a drone survey with strict orders not to land or interact with any life forms. Alex monitored the drone's feed from his lab, heart pounding with excitement. The drone captured stunning footage of the planet's surface: dense forests, crystal-clear lakes, and strange rock formations, but no sign of the Nyx. Until the drone passed over a small clearing. "Stop. Go back," Alex commanded. The drone reversed, hovering over what appeared to be a dark puddle beneath a rock overhang. Except the puddle moved. Alex leaned closer to the screen. The shape unfolded, revealing a sleek, midnight black creature. It was roughly the size of a large panther, with 6 limbs and skin that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its body looked fluid, almost as if it wasn't entirely solid. The creature appeared injured. Dark fluid leaked from a wound on what seemed to be its side. It struggled to move, dragging itself deeper under the rocks. Against all protocols and common sense, Alex made a decision. He packed a medical kit and headed for the shuttle bay. "Where do you think you're going?" Dean asked, blocking his path. "That creature is injured. I'm a xenobiologist. I can help." "Have you lost your mind? That's a Nyx. They've wiped out entire colonies." "Those are unconfirmed stories," Alex said firmly. "I took an oath to study and protect all life forms." He managed to slip away during shift change, taking the small shuttle to the surface. Landing near the clearing, Alex approached cautiously, medical kit in hand. The creature was exactly where the drone had spotted it. Up close, it was even more fascinating. Its skin rippled with iridescent patterns that seemed to shift and change. 2 large, pupilless eyes opened, fixing on Alex with startling intelligence. Alex expected fear, aggression, or an attack. Instead, the creature watched him with what could only be described as curiosity. "I want to help you," Alex said softly, knowing it couldn't understand his words, but hoping his tone conveyed his intentions. To his shock, the creature extended one limb slightly toward him, not threatening, but almost like an invitation. Taking the biggest risk of his life, Alex stepped forward and knelt beside the galaxy's most feared predator. Behind him, his communicator burst to life with the captain's furious voice. "Morales, return to the ship immediately. That's an order." But it was too late. Alex had made contact with a Nyx, and nothing would ever be the same again. Alex stood in the captain's office, hands clasped behind his back. Captain Wells paced back and forth, her face red with anger. "You deliberately disobeyed a direct order," she said. "You endangered yourself and potentially this entire ship." "With respect, Captain, the Nyx I encountered doesn't match any of the reports," Alex replied. "It showed intelligence and restraint. It could have attacked me but didn't. And that makes your actions acceptable." Wells slammed her hand on her desk. "You're confined to quarters when not on duty. No unauthorized communications, and absolutely no further contact with that creature." Alex nodded stiffly and left. Back in his quarters, he reviewed the scan data he'd gathered from the Nyx. Its biology was fascinating. A carbon-silicon hybrid structure unlike anything in human records. The injury he'd treated was already healing at an incredible rate. He couldn't stop thinking about those eyes. There was awareness there, not just animal instinct. That night, unable to sleep, Alex made his decision. He bypassed the ship's security protocols and took a shuttle back to the surface. The Nyx was waiting in the same clearing, fully healed. When it saw Alex, it moved toward him with a fluid grace that was both beautiful and terrifying. Alex held his breath as the creature circled him. Then it stopped and made a series of clicking sounds. "I wish I could understand you," Alex said. The Nyx tilted its head, then used one limb to draw in the dirt. Alex watched in amazement as it created a simple picture of the sun and planet. "You're trying to communicate," Alex whispered. He knelt down and drew his own picture, the ship in orbit. For hours, they developed a basic picture language. Alex learned the Nyx called itself something that sounded like a soft hiss. He privately named it Shadow for simplicity. Through crude drawings, Shadow explained it was not like others of its kind. It was an outcast, curious about other species rather than hunting them. Its people lived in underground communities and avoided contact with other races due to ancient conflicts. When Alex returned to the ship before dawn, he found Science Officer Dean waiting in the shuttle bay. "I should report you," Dean said. "But you won't," Alex replied. "Because you want to know what I discovered." Over the next week, Alex and Dean created a translator algorithm based on the picture language. Each night, Alex visited Shadow, bringing the device to record and analyze their interactions. Shadow revealed its species had been genetically modified long ago as weapons in an ancient war. When the war ended, they were abandoned on this planet, evolving over millennia into their current form. "The captain's requesting your research on the planet's atmosphere," Dean warned one day. "She knows you're hiding something." That evening, disaster struck. Alex arrived at the clearing to find Shadow injured again, this time by what appeared to be a ship's energy weapon. "Who did this to you?" Alex asked through the translator. Shadow's response chilled him. "Your kind. A small ship. They said all Nyx must die." Alex realized someone from the Discovery had attacked Shadow. He treated the wounds, then made a decision that would change everything. "You're not safe here. I'm taking you with me." Loading the injured Nyx onto his shuttle was difficult. Shadow was heavier than it looked. Just as they prepared to leave, a voice called out, "Step away from that creature, Morales." Security Chief Nathan Grant stood at the edge of the clearing, weapon raised. "Grant, listen to me. Shadow isn't dangerous. Someone tried to kill it." "That thing is coming with me," Grant said. "Captain's orders. Dead or alive." Alex stepped in front of Shadow protectively. "You'll have to go through me first." Grant's finger tightened on the trigger. Behind Alex, Shadow let out a low, rumbling sound that made the air vibrate. The standoff had begun, and the next few moments would determine not just their fates, but potentially the relationship between humans and the most feared species in the galaxy. Alex watched in horror as Grant's finger tightened on the trigger. Before the security chief could fire, Shadow moved with blinding speed. The Nyx didn't attack Grant. Instead, it knocked the weapon from his hand with a precise strike. Grant stumbled backward, eyes wide with fear. "What the hell?" Shadow could have killed you just now, Alex said firmly. But it didn't. Doesn't that tell you something? While Grant stood frozen, Alex helped Shadow into the shuttle. To his surprise, Grant made no move to stop them. You're making a huge mistake, Grant warned, but he picked up his weapon and backed away. During the flight back to the Discovery, Alex contacted Dean. Meet me in Cargo Bay 3. Come alone and bring medical supplies. Dean was waiting when they arrived. He gasped at the sight of Shadow emerging from the shuttle. You brought it aboard. Are you insane? Someone tried to kill Shadow, Alex explained, treating the Nex's wounds. I couldn't leave it behind. Dean paced nervously. The captain will throw you in the brig for this. Then help me hide Shadow until I can prove it's not dangerous. They moved Shadow to an unused storage room near the science labs. Using the translator, Alex learned more about Nyx society. They were not mindless killers, but a complex species with their own culture, art, and philosophy. Why do other species fear your kind so much? Alex asked. Shadow's response was surprising. We were created as weapons. Some of us still follow old programming. Most do not. We avoid others because they attack us first. For 3 days, they kept Shadow hidden. Dean created false readings to mask the Nyx's life signs from ship sensors. Alex brought food and continued their conversations, documenting everything. On the 4th day, Captain Wells summoned Alex to the bridge. We've detected unusual energy readings from Deck 6, she said. Care to explain? Before Alex could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. Hull breach in Science Lab 2. Someone shouted. Alex raced to the labs, heart pounding. He found Shadow's hiding place empty, with a hole melted through the wall. Following the trail of destruction, Alex found Shadow cornered in the mess hall by security personnel. Behind them stood Grant and a group of crew members Alex didn't recognize. I told you it would turn on us, Grant said. These creatures can't be trusted. Shadow wouldn't attack without reason. Alex insisted, pushing through the crowd. As he approached, he saw that Shadow was protecting something. A young crew member named Kelly who lay injured on the floor. What happened? Alex asked her. Kelly pointed weakly at Grant. He and his friends came to kill the alien. I tried to stop them. Alex faced Grant. You did this, not Shadow. Grant sneered. That thing is an abomination. The captain authorized its removal. I authorized no such thing, Captain Wells said, entering the mess hall. Stand down, Grant. Instead of complying, Grant raised his weapon and fired at Shadow. What happened next left everyone stunned. Shadow's body seemed to absorb the energy blast. Then, with terrifying speed, it leaped over the security team and disarmed Grant, pinning him to the floor without injuring him. The room fell silent. Shadow slowly backed away from Grant and returned to Kelly's side, making a soft purring sound as it checked her wounds. It's protecting her, Dean whispered. Captain Wells watched for a long moment, then made her decision. Chief Grant, you're relieved of duty and confined to quarters. Dr. Morales, you and I need to talk. Bring your friend. In the captain's ready room, Alex explained everything he'd learned about the Nyx. Shadow demonstrated its intelligence by drawing complex diagrams of its world. I can't keep this quiet, Wells said finally. Starfleet Command needs to know. They'll want to dissect Shadow. Alex protested. Wells shook her head. Not if I can help it. But there will be consequences. Are you prepared for what happens next? Before Alex could answer, the ship's communication officer burst in. Captain, we're receiving urgent messages from headquarters. Word about the Nyx has leaked. Every major power in the quadrant is demanding we turn it over immediately. The fragile peace they had established was about to be tested on a galactic scale. Alex sat in the conference room, watching the faces of military officials flicker on the view screen. None of them looked happy. This is a serious breach of interspecies security protocols, Admiral Patel said, her voice stern. The Nix are classified as a Type 5 threat for good reason. With respect, Admiral, our research suggests that classification may be based on misunderstandings, Captain Wells replied. Misunderstandings. Another official scoffed. The Nix wiped out an entire Centaurian mining colony 12 years ago. Alex leaned forward. May I speak? The captain nodded reluctantly. Shadow has explained that incident. A group of young Nix were provoked when miners destroyed a sacred site. It wasn't unprovoked aggression. You're taking the word of a predator, Admiral Patil asked. I'm evaluating evidence, Alex countered. Shadow could have killed multiple crew members, but chose not to. That alone contradicts our assumptions about Nix behavior. The debate continued for hours. Eventually, Admiral Patel delivered her verdict. The discovery will proceed to Starbase 84. The Nix specimen will be transferred to a secure research facility. After the call ended, Alex pounded his fist on the table. They'll kill Shadow or worse. I'm sorry, Captain Wells said. My hands are tied. That night, Alex found Dean in the lab, frantically working on something. What are you doing? Alex asked. Deleting records, Dean whispered, and programming an escape pod. You have 6 hours before we reach the starbase. Alex stared at his friend. You'll be court-martialed. Dean shrugged. Some things matter more than regulations. When Alex told Shadow about the plan, the Nix seemed unsurprised. My people have been hunted before, Shadow said through the translator, but never has one of another species risked themselves to help us. As they prepared to leave, Kelly appeared at the lab door. I'm coming with you, she said firmly. It's too dangerous, Alex protested. I owe Shadow my life, she replied. Besides, you need a pilot, and I'm the best on this ship. At 300 hours, as most of the crew slept, they made their move. Kelly disabled the sensors on a small research shuttle, while Alex and Shadow slipped aboard. Dean created a diversion in engineering, triggering minor alarms that drew security away from the shuttle bay. Just as they were about to launch, Captain Wells appeared on the bay's view screen. I can't pretend I don't see what you're doing, Morales, she said quietly. Alex held his breath, waiting for security to storm the shuttle. Instead, Wells said, the external sensors will be offline for maintenance for the next 10 minutes. Whatever happens in that time, I won't see it. The screen went black. They launched immediately, racing away from the Discovery at maximum speed. Once clear, Kelly set course for Frontier Station 9, a remote outpost where questions were rarely asked. 2 days later, they arrived at the station. Alex used his scientific credentials to secure private quarters, claiming to be conducting research on local wildlife. While in hiding, Shadow revealed something extraordinary. The Nix possessed a form of collective memory, passed genetically through generations. This memory contained information about an ancient threat, something that had nearly destroyed the galaxy eons ago. My people were created to fight this enemy, Shadow explained, creating complex drawings. The enemy will return. Soon. What enemy? Kelly asked. They have no name in your language. They consume worlds, stars, life itself. My ancestors called them the Void. Alex studied the drawings with growing concern. They matched descriptions in obscure human myths about world eaters that would one day return. Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency broadcast on all channels. Alex's face appeared on screen, alongside an image of Shadow. Attention all citizens, a stern voice announced. These individuals are wanted for theft of classified biological specimens and treason. Report any sightings immediately to Galactic Security. Kelly turned off the screen. What now? Alex looked at Shadow, whose skin had darkened with what he now recognized as determination. We need proof of this threat, Alex said. Then we go back and face them. Shadow moved to the window, looking up at the stars. The proof is already coming. Look there. The Nix pointed toward a distant section of space. Through his portable scanner, Alex detected an anomaly. a region where stars seem to be dimming. Is that? Kelly couldn't finish the question. Shadow's voice was grim. The first sign. The void awakens. The galactic hunt for Alex and Shadow had become much more than a matter of interspecies relations. It was now a race to warn humanity about an approaching catastrophe that only the Nix understood. Alex studied the readings from their makeshift observatory for the 5th time. The results were always the same. Stars in the Cygnus sector were dimming at an impossible rate. "How long do we have?" he asked Shadow. The Nix's skin rippled with dark patterns, a sign of deep concern. 3 months, maybe less. Kelly looked up from her work calibrating their communication equipment. "No one will believe us without better evidence." "Then we get better evidence," Alex said firmly. "Shadow, you said your people have faced this threat before. Where would we find records of the previous encounters?" Shadow moved to the wall and began drawing with one limb. The image showed a planet with 3 moons. The ancestral memory temple, deep in Nix territory. Alex stared at the drawing. "We have to go to your homeworld. But your people. Some will try to kill you," Shadow admitted. "But I know safe paths." They spent days preparing, gathering supplies, and modifying their shuttle. As fugitives, they couldn't risk using official trade routes or stations. On the morning of their departure, unexpected visitors arrived. Dean Phillips and Captain Wells stood outside their hideout. "How did you find us?" Alex asked, tense and ready to run. "I placed a tracker in your medical kit," Dean admitted. "But we're not here to arrest you." Captain Wells stepped forward. "The anomaly you discovered in Cygnus. Our scientists have confirmed it. Something is consuming those stars. Headquarters is calling it a natural phenomenon. But it's not natural," Alex finished. "It's the void. Shadow's people were created to fight it." Over the next hour, they shared everything they knew. When Alex explained their plan to visit the Nix homeworld, Wells shook her head. "That's suicide. The Galactic Council has declared the Nix system off-limits." "We don't have a choice," Kelly insisted. "The evidence we need is there." After much debate, Captain Wells made an unexpected offer. "The Discovery can get you there faster and safer than that shuttle. Officially, we'll be conducting a deep space survey." 2 days later, the Discovery approached the edge of Nix territory. Shadow guided them through a complex route that avoided detection by both Nix patrols and Galactic Council monitoring stations. As they entered orbit around Shadow's homeworld, Alex marveled at its beauty. Vast oceans of deep purple and landmasses covered in silver-blue vegetation. "We must go to the temple alone," Shadow said. "Too many humans would attract attention." Alex, Kelly, and Shadow took a small landing craft to the surface. They touched down in a remote valley surrounded by towering crystalline formations. Following Shadow through narrow canyons, they eventually reached a massive structure carved into a mountainside. The entrance was marked with symbols similar to those Shadow used when drawing. "The Memory Temple," Shadow whispered. "No outsider has ever entered." Just as they approached the entrance, movement caught Alex's eye. Dozens of Nix emerged from hiding places around them, their skin patterns shifting in aggressive displays. One Nix, larger than the others, stepped forward. Its skin bore elaborate markings that seemed to indicate leadership status. Shadow moved protectively in front of Alex and Kelly, communicating with the leader in a series of clicks and hisses. The exchange grew heated. Several times, the other Nix advanced threateningly before Shadow's responses made them pause. Finally, Shadow turned to Alex. "Elder Nightwing demands proof of your intentions." "Tell him about the void," Alex suggested. Shadow shook its head. "They know of the void. They don't believe humans can help fight it." Alex thought quickly, then removed his weapon and medical equipment, placing them on the ground. "Tell him I come to learn, not to take. That I believe your people were created for a purpose that affects us all." Shadow translated. The elder's skin rippled with what might have been surprise. After a tense moment, Nightwing approached Alex. Without warning, it extended a limb and placed it on Alex's forehead. Alex gasped as images flooded his mind. Stars dying, worlds crumbling, and creatures of pure darkness spreading across the galaxy. Among these horrific visions, he saw Nyx fighting alongside other species, forming a defensive line against the consuming void. When the connection broke, Alex fell to his knees, breathing hard. "What did you see?" Kelly asked, helping him up. "Everything," Alex whispered. "The last war against the void, the alliance that fought it, and how close we came to losing everything." Elder Nightwing made a decision. With a gesture, it invited them into the temple. The other Nyx parted to create a path. Inside the temple, Alex stood in awe. The vast chamber was illuminated by bioluminescent crystals that cast a soft blue light over ancient stone carvings. The walls told a story in images, the creation of the Nyx, their battles against shadowy enemies, and finally, their isolation on this world. "These records go back millions of years," Alex whispered. Shadow led them to a central platform where Elder Nightwing waited. Other Nyx formed a circle around them, their skin patterns shifting with curiosity and suspicion. "The Elder will show you the memory of the void," Shadow explained. "It will be painful." Before Alex could respond, Nightwing placed both front limbs on a crystal embedded in the platform. The chamber darkened, then filled with three-dimensional images so real Alex felt he could touch them. They watched as stars collapsed, planets crumbled, and entire civilizations vanished. The void wasn't a single entity, but a collective. Ancient beings that fed on energy itself. They left nothing but empty, dead space in their wake. Then came images of resistance, the Nyx fighting alongside other species now extinct. The final battle showed a massive device that pushed the void back into the space between galaxies. When the vision ended, Alex found himself on his knees, tears streaming down his face. Kelly stood frozen beside him, her expression haunted. "Now you understand," Shadow said quietly. "My ancestors were created to sense the void's approach. We are living warning systems." Elder Nightwing made a series of complex sounds. Shadow translated. "He says the device that banished the void was dismantled after the war. Its pieces were hidden across the galaxy. Without it, we cannot win." "Where are these pieces?" Alex asked. Before Shadow could translate, alarms echoed through the temple. A young Nyx rushed in, communicating urgently with the Elder. "Ships have entered orbit," Shadow explained, skin darkening with alarm. "Galactic Council military vessels." On the temple's viewing crystal, they saw 5 warships surrounding the Discovery. A transmission played throughout the chamber. "This is Admiral Vincent Carter of the Galactic Council. We are here to neutralize the Nyx threat. Surrender the human fugitives immediately, or we will begin orbital bombardment." Captain Wells' face appeared, attempting to negotiate, but the Admiral was unmoved. "The Council has reviewed your logs, Captain. You've been compromised by the Nyx. We know they've used mind control on your crew." "That's ridiculous," Kelly said. "The Nyx have no such ability." Elder Nightwing rose to his full height, skin patterns shifting to a deep red. He made a formal declaration that Shadow translated with clear distress. "The Elder has invoked ancient law. He challenges Admiral Carter to the trial of truth. Combat between champions to determine whose words are honest." "Combat?" Alex asked, alarmed. "That won't solve anything." Shadow's patterns showed resignation. "It is our oldest tradition. The Council knows our ways. They must accept or lose face with other species." To everyone's surprise, Admiral Carter agreed to the challenge, naming his champion, Commander Jack Wilson, a decorated soldier known for his strength and combat skills. Elder Nightwing turned to Shadow. "You have brought humans to our sacred place. You will stand as our champion." The trial was set for dawn. That night, Alex argued desperately with Shadow. "This is suicide. Wilson has cybernetic enhancements. He's killed dozens in combat." Shadow remained calm. "If I refuse, the Council will declare war on my people." "Then let me take your place," Alex said suddenly. Shadow's skin patterns showed shock. No human has ever fought for the Nyx. Exactly, Alex insisted. It will prove to everyone that humans and Nyx can trust each other. After hours of debate, Elder Nightwing finally agreed. At dawn, Alex stood in the sacred combat ring, wearing only light protective gear. Across from him, Commander Wilson looked like a walking weapon, his enhanced body gleaming with metal and synthetic muscle. "This is your last chance to surrender, traitor," Wilson called out. Alex held his ground. "I'm not a traitor. I'm trying to save everyone, including you." Wilson laughed. "The Nyx have gotten into your head. I'll make this quick." As the signal to begin sounded, Alex faced the most dangerous opponent of his life. But more than his own survival was at stake. The future relationship between humans and Nyx, and perhaps the galaxy's only hope against the void, rested on his shoulders. Wilson charged forward with enhanced speed, and the trial by combat began. Alex felt the impact of Wilson's first blow, even through his protective gear. The enhanced soldier moved with inhuman speed, landing 3 more strikes before Alex could even raise his defenses. "Pathetic," Wilson sneered. "This is who the Nyx chose as their champion." Alex stumbled backward, tasting blood. He wasn't a fighter. He was a scientist. But he had spent weeks studying Shadow's movements. Now he watched Wilson carefully, looking for patterns in his attacks. There, the commander favored his right side, leaving a split-second opening after each combination of blows. When Wilson charged again, Alex didn't try to match his strength. Instead, he waited for the opening and slipped to the side, using the commander's momentum against him. Wilson crashed into the boundary markers, surprised by the maneuver. From the edges of the combat ring, Elder Nightwing and the other Nyx watched silently. Shadow's skin rippled with concern. The fight continued brutally. Wilson's enhancements gave him overwhelming advantages, but Alex fought with desperate intelligence, using the environment, and Wilson's overconfidence against him. After 20 minutes, Alex could barely stand. His body was covered in bruises and cuts. Wilson, barely winded, approached for the final blow. "Any last words, traitor?" he asked. Alex looked past him to where Admiral Carter watched with cold satisfaction. "The void is coming," Alex gasped. "If you kill me and attack the Nyx, you doom us all." Wilson hesitated, just for a moment. In that pause, Alex saw his only chance. He lunged forward, not with a punch but with his hand outstretched, touching the commander's neural interface, the connection between his enhancements and his brain. Alex pressed the emergency shutdown sequence he had memorized from technical manuals. Wilson's eyes widened as his enhancements suddenly deactivated, leaving him momentarily disoriented. With his last strength, Alex tackled Wilson to the ground, pinning him in the traditional Nyx submission hold that Shadow had taught him. "Yield," Alex demanded. Wilson struggled, but without his enhancements, he couldn't break free. "Never." "Look," Alex said, nodding toward the viewing crystal. It now showed live images from the Cygnus sector. 3 stars collapsing simultaneously, their energy being drained away. "That's the void. That's what I'm trying to stop." Wilson stared at the images, the fight momentarily forgotten. Elder Nightwing approached, skin patterns shifting to formal declaration mode. Through Shadow, he addressed everyone present. "The trial is concluded. The human champion has won but spares his opponent. This has never happened before." Admiral Carter stepped forward, furious. "This proves nothing. The trial was rigged." Before he could continue, Captain Wells interrupted, broadcasting new data from the Discovery sensors. "Admiral, we're detecting the same energy signature from Cygnus approaching 3 more star systems. This matches exactly with the Nyx historical records." For the first time, uncertainty crossed Carter's face. Alex, still holding Wilson down, spoke clearly despite his injuries. "The Nyx were created to fight the void. They're not our enemies. They're our only hope. Wilson suddenly pushed Alex away and stood up. Everyone tensed, expecting him to attack again. Instead, he faced Admiral Carter. "Sir, I believe Morales is telling the truth. These readings can't be faked." After tense negotiations, a historic agreement was reached. The Galactic Council would form a joint task force with the Nix to locate the pieces of the ancient weapon that had once pushed back the void. 3 months later, Alex stood on the bridge of the U.S. Alliance, a new ship created specifically for the mission. Beside him stood Shadow, now officially recognized as the first Nix ambassador to the Galactic Council. "The first piece is located in the Andromeda sector," Shadow said, skin patterns showing determination. "We should reach it in 2 days." Alex nodded, looking at the diverse crew around them. Humans, Nix, and representatives from 5 other species, all working together. "Did you ever imagine this when you were injured in that clearing?" Alex asked Shadow quietly. The Nix's skin rippled with what Alex now recognized as amusement. "I hope to survive the day. You hope to understand a new species. Instead, we may save the galaxy." As the Alliance jumped to faster-than-light speed, Alex reflected on how one moment of compassion toward the galaxy's most feared predator had changed everything. Sometimes, defying expectations was the only way to move forward. Behind them, the stars shone brightly, stars they now had a chance to save.